What's going on, everybody? It's me, Mark, and I'm back again with another episode of Blerdkast I, and today I'm joined by a very special guest. She's a comic book writer. You know, I'm going to let her introduce herself because I can't do her justice. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hi, everybody. I'm Laurie Calcaterra. I'm an indie comic book writer and creator. I wrote and created Path of the Pale Rider, which is it's a Western apocalypse. So we're a little bit Mad Max, we're a little bit I Am Legend with a lot of spaghetti Western feel thrown in there.
Okay, cool. And we're definitely going to talk about that a lot. You just had a Kickstarter that ended, and I heard it was very successful. Tell me a little bit more about the Kickstarter.
Well, we have a few days left. We have 4 days left. So if people want to hop on and still order, you're guaranteed to get a comic book at this point. We're 106% funded. So yes, we hit our goal. Thank you. I know it was a joyous day when we got there. It's like everybody kind of woke up and was like, I feel like backing today, and they all came in, and it was great. It was a great feeling. So yeah, so we have a lot of really cool stuff that goes along with the comic book, which we'll talk about. But you get to come along for all the shenanigans, and yes, you get a comic book. So I'm so excited. I was like, I'm ready to move on to that next phase to get back to work and start, finishing out the comic and send it to print.
Okay, cool. That sounds exciting. Little small known fact, back when I was a wee bit kid in high school, I wanted to always do comics. I always wanted to be a comic book artist, so I went to school for animation and media arts, and the rest is kind of history from there. Long story short, I ended up picking up a camera, and that's where we are. So anyway, I always like to start my interviews off by just asking, in general, what have you been geeking out to recently? Any books or any shows or any movies you've been just kind of obsessed about?
Well, I mean, Doctor Strange just came out.
Great.
There's been a lot of Marvel madness going on. It's like I had to go back and rewatch Doctor Strange 1 and like really refamiliar. It's been a while since I watched Doctor Strange 1. That one came out in 2014, 16, somewhere around there. Okay, so rewatched that, and then kind of went back and watched WandaVision. Obviously, Wanda's in there just to see, and then I wanted to stay off the internet as much as I could, so I didn't get any spoilers. But the payoff was great. Like once we saw Doctor Strange: Multiverse of Madness, it's like everything kind of fell into place, and it made sense. A lot of the arcs that were happening, right. Doctor Strange arcs, Wanda's arc. They introduced a great new character for people to follow. But this one, it just felt so different. You know what I mean? It's like Sam Raimi and his Evil Dead.
I did like that.
Influences were definitely visible.
Yeah, I love that he had his horror imprint put on this. It definitely left me wanting to see more. Kind of weird seeing horror and Disney in the same like spectrum.
Yeah,
but they pulled it off. Like if it was good for the movie or not, whatever. But they did pull it off. It was very well done, and I would like to see some really good horror from Disney. Like I think that would be really good. I think a lot of kids were traumatized by that though.
I think mine were. Because we took them, they both wanted to go, and like I sat next to the little one and just kind of like anytime I could tell that there was a jump scare coming, I would cover her eyes. She probably had her eyes covered for about 25% of the movie. But she'll be fine. They love Marvel. They've seen all like the Loki series and stuff like that, so they'll be fine.
Okay. Well, I hope she doesn't know what happened to Professor X. That's all I hope, that you was able to be a parent.
I did that one for sure. I saw that. I mean, you could see that one coming from a mile away. You know what I mean? It's like after experiencing what just happened to everybody else, you're like, okay, blinders for you. Something's gonna happen. It's not gonna be good. So that one was a good one. I was like, woo!
yeah, that was good. Good parent instincts there. So let's talk about you. Let's talk about you and your geek backstory. Why don't you tell me a little bit more about yourself and just growing up geek for you? What was your geek experience like?
It's like we used to watch Saturday morning cartoons, like the Batman series, the 90s X-Men. I was big into Power Rangers.
You too.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think for one Christmas, I was in middle school. My parents got me like all Power Rangers stuff.
That must have
And
been
like it was almost to the point where it was like I was growing out of it. Yeah, it was great. I was super excited, but it was on camera, so I was like embarrassed that I got like Power Ranger sheets. You know what I mean? Like, but I still love them. I still do. Like the Green Ranger arc was my favorite. It's like, how can you have a sword and a flute? That's awesome. It's just yeah. So that's influenced me a lot, especially growing up. And I started martial arts in high school, so I've always wanted to do martial arts. So that's kind of like my progression. And then of course it's like I got into high school. I still love nerdy sci-fi, Star Wars, Star Trek, you know, Mad Max, like the old Mad Max, like Beyond Thunderdome, and anything that's like sci-fi, I'm there. Apocalypse tropes is kind of like my thing though. So if it's like zombies, or I love horror and I love zombies, but like if it's an apocalypse, that's what really drives me. And I found more of those in comic books than, I mean, there's movies and stuff, but like the comic books are where it's at when you come to an apocalypse.
Gotcha.
So it's like Low, East of West, The Walking Dead, Oblivion Song. Like superheroes are great too. Like I'll read anything. And even stuff that's not either one of those tropes, like you start getting into like more of the mysteries, like, ooh, there's some scary comic books.
Yeah.
Witches, W-Y instead of an I, T-C-H-E. So scary. The scariest comic book I've ever read. And I think it was only like 6 issues and then it was done. But it was like, it will blow your mind how scary a comic book can be. What else? Like Nailbiter was pretty intense because it's like about a whole town of serial killers and stuff like that. So.
Right.
But even like Invincible can be intense with the amount of gore.
Yeah, definitely.
That's present, you know, and it catches you off guard. And that's a Robert Kirkman, so it's like so many twists and turns and good meaty moments where it leaves you hanging and you're like, oh, I need that next issue like right now so I can find out what happens. So, you know, I really enjoy stuff like that. I think I'm rereading East of West right now by Hickman and Dragotta. Like that's one of my all-time favorites. That one and like Lazarus are really good. They're both like apocalypse, but just different.
Really different. Good. Gotcha. So was it your love of how would you say was it that got you into comics outside of the apocalyptical stories? Was it just something about that medium that stuck out to you that made you think that I'll be good at writing comics or something? How did that turn about?
So this is kind of weird. Okay, so it's like me being a nerd and like wanting to do martial arts, getting into martial arts, doing martial arts all my life. In about 2016, I started choreographing fight scenes for a production company based out of Detroit. So that's where I kind of got my taste of like film. And my fight team and I, we choreographed a short film that we produced called Catfishing. And that was really my first time writing anything. And like, there's really like no plot. There's minimal plot. All it is just us kicking butt and taking names. And it was the director of cinematography that was like, what are you trying to say with this? I was like, nothing. He was like, you should be saying something. He's like, you have to have a target audience. And I was like, you're right. So then I started writing for them. So I started creating web content. We filmed a pilot of my series called The Agency, which is like spies and martial arts and lots of action, right? So I wrote 2 seasons of that. It didn't get past the pilot because right around the time we were ready for reshoots, my family relocated from Michigan to Texas. So I wasn't in the picture anymore. So it's very difficult to continue. But it's still a great series and we could still turn that into a comic book. So from that, I started writing this project under a different name called Dead West. And it just got so big that I didn't know what to do with it. So I wrote it as a full-length movie and I got stuck, you know, thinking like, how are we going to produce this or who's going to produce it, or like researching like how to pitch to Netflix or who else can I pitch to, maybe we can animate it. And finally, I let my husband read it. You know how you're always like, he's going to think I'm weird if he reads this.
Right.
But he's another big nerd and he read it and he was like, you know what, this is a comic book in my head. And I was like, you're right. Like, I don't know what, it's like he had to get me past myself. my own, construct that I set up for myself. But once he read it and he was like, it's a comic book, I'm like, you are absolutely right. Because we could draw everything in this world, and it won't cost millions of dollars like it would if we were trying to produce it live action. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that's kind of where I was like, okay. So then I took the whole big script and I started breaking it up into episodes or issues. And then we started looking for an illustrator, which took a couple tries, but we found the right one at this point, and moving forward. So that's how it happened. It's kind of a weird workaround. It's like, I'm a nerd, I love comics, got into production and wrote this thing, and kind of had to go backwards and like go back to comics, because that's how we have to tell the story.
Right. That's weird, because even like if you do it for a movie, you have to build the storyboarding up for it.
Yes.
And the storyboarding is essentially sequential arts, which is essentially comics in its precursor form. So right. It's just funny how a script can be adapted to multiple different things. So that's great. I'm great that you were able to let someone look at it, being your husband, and have them have the realization that this will be perfect for comics. So that must be really great, having another geek in your life that who you can trust, you can get those ideas and bounce them off of. So that's really good. What was the process like finding illustrators to convey what you imagine in your mind that this world would look like?
That one I think was the most challenging part of all of this, because it was something that I had to rely on someone else and trust someone else with my vision. You know what I mean? Because I had someone involved in 2020 who, I mean, like, all the people that have been involved have done like variant covers, and they're still, supportive, and I talk to them, but unfortunately they're not, the right person to draw the comic. So like, I had a gentleman involved, and it's just like, it was 2020, and like, it was pandemic, and everybody's life fell apart, and I felt like for a short time that we were cursed, because every artist I brought on, like, as soon as they were like, I'm going to do the project, we're going to get it done, here's my, here's our timeline, and here's how we're going to do it, and then like a tree would fall on their house. I'm not joking. Like that, like, just so random and so like catastrophic. And it's like, okay, well, now I have to pick up extra hours to pay for this giant hole in my roof, because they're, it's like, art is their side job, comics is their side job. Right. They still have a full-time job and a family that they have to take care of. So I had two artists that kind of happened, where they both kind of fell through. And then it was like, I took a whole year off. I wanted to make sure that the next person I brought on, if I brought someone on, would be the right one. You know what I mean? And I was like, do I do it myself? Because I have an art degree, but I don't know comics as well as like the other mediums that I know. Like, I'm a painter, I'm a jeweler, but I haven't, like, it's hard to do anatomy perspective.
Yes, it's very hard.
Like what angles and like to understand pacing and paneling, and when you turn the page, and it's like, I felt like if I were to do it, it would take 10 times longer. It wouldn't be anywhere near as good, right?
Yeah.
So I went looking for another artist. I found Marco. His name is Marco Defillo. We met each other on social media in a Facebook group called Connecting Comic Writers to Artists. So that's exactly what we were looking for. He was looking for someone like myself who had a script ready to go, and I was looking for someone who could devote, he's a full-time artist. That's all he does. So that's what I was looking for. Like, I need someone who can just do this, Right. So, we talked about it, and he's a super nerd, just like the rest of us, and likes steampunk and sci-fi and DC comics and anime. And it's like, okay, this is a good fit. He did a character sketch for me of Jude St. Clair, which is the main, protagonist, and it was beautiful. It's on the Kickstarter, so if people want to go look and see, when he did Jude St. Clair, I was like, this is it. This is what's in my head, And then after that, it's like, let's sign a contract and let's move forward. And he's been fabulous. He's very timely. He's always, very great. He's great at communication. So if he's like, it's going to take me about this amount of time, it takes him that amount of time. So he's always doing what he says he's going to be doing. Which is great, when you're working as a team, because I can only do what I can do, and it's like, I need you to do the rest. So So it's
Right.
working. And he's super excited too. When we hit our goal, I was like, yay. He was like, now we can make the magic happen. I'm like, get back to work. I said it nicely. I said it nicely to him at least. But I was like, get back to work.
That's understandable. That's good. So this was your first time working, well, not your first time, but this was like your first time really working with an artist and just having everything click on all cylinders. So that like creation process of him just getting the script and then you getting back like pages must have just been like Christmas for you almost.
Yeah, it was. And I mean, like, we have our creative process where it's like, we'll read the script together for the episode. I will point out everything that's super important for the reader to see. Like Prince, his horse has a star on her forehead. So like that has to do with why she's named Prince. So that's like super important that we see that, you know what I mean? Like what Jude is wearing or how he's wearing it. I have certain things that he need to be seen, but then he can draw in any, you know, configuration he wants. Stuff like that. But it's like, I had ideas about what the bear looked like, and then I just kind of like threw all my ideas at him, and then he was like, okay, took notes, and then he put it together. So Marco is the one that does like the composition and the paneling. We just kind of discuss like where it would make sense for the pages to turn. He sketches everything out. His creative process is like, for a page, he'll do like a real rough drawing of what it looks like, and then he might change some panels on the second time through, and then maybe change it again on the third time. And then he'll send everything to me. We'll look at it together and be like, I really like this, or like, this is what jumps off the page. And I'll just give him some minor feedback. And he's like, yeah, I like this on this page and this on this page, and I want to put those together, you know, and it would flow better, you know, stuff like that. But he's basically doing all of that composition and just like getting minor stuff from me, or you know, or if I see like a problem that's has to do with the script, like, oh, don't forget to put the star on Prince's forehead, stuff like that.
Right.
But other than that, like, he's free to just compose, and I'm really happy with what he turns out. I don't want to confine him artistically, you know what I mean? There's nothing worse than having a creator be like, I don't like this, or change this, or move this around, or da 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 da. Like, tell the story how you see it in your head, and I support that. Just make sure that these details are in there where they need to be, and we're good.
Right. I understand that. Back when I was dwelling in the world of comics, I would work with writers and other creators, and they would like be such tyrants about every little detail of how the art should look, and I was like, hey, if you like, you can pick up this pencil and try it yourself, because you stifle creativity. And I've heard those stories from a lot of comic book artists who work with other writers and things, and like the writers control every aspect of everything, but like, you know, comics and writing and the art side of it have to be a perfect marriage. To tell the story, to visually tell the story, to have the artistic direction and everything where you need them to meet. So you have to work together more as a team and not be like one is higher than the other, I feel like. Because one of the questions I actually have wrote now, I want to ask you is, in your opinion as a writer, which is more important to comics, the writing or the artistic direction?
No, they're the same. They are the same. You have to have a good story for people to be in, but if the art sucks, it doesn't matter what your story is. You know what I mean? So you need to have it has to be both. And that's why it's like, I had to take that time and really find the right artist. And it's like, he might be more expensive than most of the people I can find, but he's worth every penny if he can, you know, take what I have written on the page and put it down in a cohesive way that people will feel the emotion, see the setting, and understand everything that's going on with the action. There's no price tag you can put on that. You know what I mean? So there's not, you know what I mean? It's like, if the art sucks, it's terrible. Doesn't matter how good your story is. And again, the art could be great, but there's nothing happening. It's like, what am I reading?
No, that's true.
Like, this is beautiful, but what?
No, that is true.
Go ahead.
And I guess it would depend on the art style and things like that, because I've read some comics that have like no words, but obviously you still have a writer behind the scenes writing the sequence of events out, so there's still writing involved, but you can tell a story with no dialogue within your comic and tell a great story. Or even the opposite is true. I've read comics that were really very well written. The art style was a bit, maybe not there, but I think that was the point of the direction of telling that story, that the story was the thing that was more compelling, and the art style was just this trippy, like sense of welcome to my world, and this is a story kind of telling. So I've seen it work on both levels, but like the perfect marriage is when they just both click together, when the writing team and the artistic direction are just in sync with each other. That's where you get like comics from. And I think that's also why comics make great mediums to tell such fantastical, over elaborate stories. Like you said, a lot of horror, a lot of superheroes, a lot of the apocalypto type of story best in comics, because like you can follow along and just be deep into the world, be immersed into the art, be immersed into the words on the screen or the words on the page, and just like the things that the characters have to go through. I feel like you can't really get that like in a movie or in a TV show. Or maybe it's just me, because I also grew up like off comics too. So like one of my favorite things to do is just get a bunch of comics and some junk food and just be good all day just reading comics. And just like I learned how to draw by like tracing comic book panels and like manga and things like that. So like that's my geekiness at my core, is just sitting at home drawing comics and just drawing and just doing everything. So I just love that aspect of the whole process for me. But with you being an actual comic book creator yourself, I want to ask you, what is your favorite part of the process? Is it completing the script? Is it working with the artist? Is it just seeing the artist do the inking on the page? What's your favorite part of the creation process?
Well, of course, like, I mean, writing is sometimes such a drag. It's it's like I have all these ideas in my head, and I feel like someone put it very aptly. It's like, in order to get it out, it's almost like filling a sandbox with sand, and then later on you go back and you build the sandcastle. So it's like just getting it on the page sometimes is just so hard, especially like for myself, where it's like I got kids, I got dogs, I got this going on, running here, appointments, that, blah, blah, blah. So it's like I don't have time to just sit down and be quiet, because it's like if I'm answering questions, I'm not focusing on what I'm doing. So that to me is like the hard part. Once I get it on the page and I can play with it, that's easy. But I think, for me, the most rewarding part for me is when Marco turns in completed pages. I love seeing his artwork, seeing the story come to life, seeing the expressions, where it's like I can write it and then just see it come to life.
Right.
That is my favorite. When he turns in a page and I'm just like, look at this splash page. Look at the expression of Jude. Look what he's wearing. Look at the bear, this giant undead bear in this face. And it's just like, that's the best. That's, gold stars all day for me when I see a finished page.
Gotcha. I can only imagine what that's like. I've seen some of the excitement on people's faces when they just get like a set of pages and it's exactly what they wanted, if not more than what they wanted. I love that kind of feeling.
Me too.
Oh man, why did I stick around in comics? Oh, because it was expensive.
Because of that? Oh yeah, that too.
Yeah, it was expensive. Art school was very expensive, so that
It's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard.
Yeah, it is. So why don't you tell me a little bit more about your Kickstarter and about your story?
Okay. So, Path of the Pale Rider, the title itself, The Pale Rider. So if you read the Bible, there's revelations where we're all familiar with the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, right? We've all heard about them. So the 4th horseman rides in on a pale horse, and he who sits upon him is named Death. So there's that passage. And there's been other spaghetti westerns with Clint Eastwood. There's a movie called The Pale Rider, where he's maybe the embodiment of death. They never really answer that question. So in this world, our topic is death, but in reverse. It's like the death process is broken. Right. So what happens is, like, if your body were to die, Mark, your body's dead, but your soul is still stuck in your body. So you don't transition, you don't rest. You're here for your decay. So when your brain starts to decay, you start losing your facilities. You could get violent, you could get forgetful, you could become indifferent. So now it's like you have to deal with that. Your family has to deal with that. And us as a world, we start having all these major issues because the death process is broken. And it's not just for people, it's for animals and insects and everything.
Right.
Right. So that's how we have like undead bears or, undead insects. And it's like, it starts like, let's think about that. If we just slaughter a cow and we're going to process it for meat, it's still animated. So can we butcher a thrashing, kicking cow? Probably not. So now we have problems with food. Right. Because even if we were able to, let's say we grind it up and it's a patty, would the meat still move while you're trying to eat your burger?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Actually, that does happen if you like certain animals that you eat, like say octopus or squid, you cut them up, they'll still be moving.
They're still moving.
Eating and cooking them. Lobsters and crabs like that. That's interesting concept. I've had a theory about death, but I think I'm going to read your comic and really see where you go with this, because I think you're kind of in my head about some of these theories about death. That's insane.
Yeah. So then let's talk about plants. Okay, so we're going to become vegetarians, right? Because we can't eat meat. So insects, they're only good at like a couple things. I kind of, you see them as like a lower form of intelligence. So maybe they don't realize that they're dead and they just continue on with their daily process, which is eating.
Right.
So now we have these giant swarms of bugs eating crops that you can't use pesticides. So now we're having a famine. You know what I mean? We have dead things that are rotting in our water. So we have water problem. You know what I mean? Like we have overpopulation.
Whoa.
We have this growing population of undead people would, like in the beginning, no one would know what to do with them. It's like, so they send them home. But then as they start to become more erratic, maybe violent, and it hits them all differently depending on like how you die, how old you are, blah, 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 So if you have a head injury, maybe your brain is more damaged, maybe you start to decline quicker than someone who didn't, and it's like, maybe you have someone that was like, you're a zombie, I'm going to shoot you in the head and you're going to stop, right? And they shoot them in the head and now they become much more erratic because they have less of their brain functioning. So it's like, there's no way out. You can be a pile of bones and still be stuck here. It's bad. And it's like, the more you think about it, it's like, okay, so in our world, when you die, you can't own property, you can't vote, you can't drive a car, you can't own a firearm. But in Path of the Pale Rider, these people are still around. How long do we let them hang on to those rights? At what point should you take those away? Where do they go? Because if you're taking their property away, where do they go?
Right. Wow.
So,
that's very interesting. Like I thought you was gonna go one way, but the more you told me, I'm like, that's really interesting. Like a world where the dead just don't die and everything stick around. I didn't even think about the aspects of the insects and the famine that could happen because of that. That's such a kind of blew my mind during this interview. Mind blown. That's such a great story. I'm definitely going to make sure I pick it up when it's out.
Cool. Like Jude wears this technology that we talk about. It's a disc. So their government issued, it's something that you have to wear at all times. You have to have it like a driver's license. And when you tap it, it will light up and it will show like the lines for your heartbeat, and it has a speaker on it. So it's like if you get pulled over by the police and they tap it, they can see if you're living or if you're undead. Of course, if you're undead for any period of time, you're going to start to decompose and they'll be able to tell. But this is more for like people who are recently undead. But if you think about it, anything that's a device, it's technology, we're going to hack it.
Right.
So now you have this. Now you have hacked discs where you can have undead that can pass as human, or you might have issues where you're living and your disc stops working and maybe you get hauled off because your disc is malfunctioning. You know what I mean? So there's all sorts of, we really take a real world approach to how people would solve problems during this time.
Gotcha.
Maybe we would tackle passing as human. So makeup, chemicals, would you self-embalm? What can help you preserve your body longer so you look human as opposed to being undead? And then after the undead population grows to maybe when they're the majority, is it important to pass anymore? Maybe they start doing things or not, you know what I mean? Where it's like, it doesn't matter if you have skin hanging off your face or you can see your teeth, or if you have both your eyes. You wouldn't try to necessarily hide that because now the undead population is the majority.
Right.
So
and as more people are born, obviously more people die. At some point, the undead population is going to outgrow the living population, and then you have other issues. Wow, that's very interesting. I'm definitely going to pick that up when it's out. That sounds like a very enjoyable read. Definitely.
So that's kind of the world. So then the story is about Jude St. Clair. We're 10 years into the apocalypse. It's basically things have devolved into the Wild West. Okay, so anything kind of goes. There's lawlessness in different parts. It just depends on where you're at, and he can't let go. So a lot of people, like 10 years into any kind of crisis, people have moved on. I mean, look at where we are with coronavirus. People have moved on, right? It's been 2 years, we're done with it. Carry on. But 10 years, it's like everybody's just trying to like do their, daily tasks and get through whatever task is in front of them and just keep going. But Jude can't. He's stuck. He wants to know what caused the death process to break. He's looking for something or someone in this apocalypse, and if he can figure out what broke the death process, he's gonna, obviously try to survive long enough to put it back to the way it was.
Right.
So that's the story. So when you're with him in this first episode, the 8 pages I give on Kickstarter, it's like there's this chunk where he's on this road, and it's kind of like what you were talking about, where there's not a lot of words, but in this environment, it's important for them to be quiet because you have unknown elements, which could be living or could be undead, but it doesn't matter. It's like, even if it's a living bear, you could kill it and then it could still get up and chase you. Right?
Right.
So it's like, that's where he is. He's on this like road that's fallen apart. It's a cliff up, it's a cliff down. So it's either go forward or go back. And him and Prince decide to go forward. He puts shoes on her feet to try and stay quiet because it needs to be quiet. They go around this corner. They see this bear. Oh, he had stopped to pull a glass. There's a glass in like an undead poor person who got just like creamed by a boulder, right? And for eternity, they're an arm sticking out from a boulder. And they're holding this thing, and he like wrenches it out. It goes flying in the air. He dives to go get it and like risks his life to get this thing. Hopefully it has some significance, wink, wink. It's a glass, and it has the map of the city of Las Vegas. And then like this bird caws, and it kind of like wakes him up. Like he's just like, I that was dumb. You know what I mean? Like I shouldn't have been doing that. That's making too much noise. He shoves it in his saddlebag. They go around the corner, and there's this bear carcass. They go over the bear carcass because it's taking up the entire road. And they have this like one little moment of, oh, everything's okay. And poor Prince trips on the road because it's in such bad shape. Mm-hmm. And when she trips, this glass comes flying out and shatters. Oh. So wakes up the bear. Again, it's this apex predator, can run faster, can climb, can swim, and it's undead. So you can't kill it. It's already undead. So how do you get away from that?
That's a good question. That's a very good question. How do you stop the dead? But yeah, how can you stop the dead? And you can't kill the dead. There's no Walking Dead rules that apply here. So what are you gonna do? Very good. This sounds very exciting. Like I said, I can't wait to check this out when it's finally available. Also, do you mind if I like put some of those pages from the Kickstarter into the video?
Please do.
Okay, cool.
We have some beautiful artwork. Like Marco's cover is amazing. It's that the glass that has shattered. We have 3 variant covers. There's one of Big James that's like very George Romero, Night of the Living Dead feeling. We have Jude St. Clair, Against the Sunset. That's Everett Watkins' cover. Amazing. And then there's the David Rodriguez cover where it has a bunch of zombies coming towards a broken disc. They're awesome. They're so good. Okay. The pages themselves speak for themselves. Like, feel free to put them all in and people can kind of see. Okay. But yeah.
I'll definitely do that. So let me ask you this: as a writer, what's the biggest thing that you want the audience to take away about you? Like, every artist, every writer puts a part of themselves in their story. So what is it that you want us to take away from the story about you, about who you are, or any of your experience?
Well, being that I'm a martial artist, you're going to see some spectacular fights. But they come with the story. I don't throw fights into every episode. It's like, it has to, if it makes sense, they go in there. But they're good. They're good fights because I know fighting. I love twist endings. I love all different genres. So you're going to see Jude as he goes through his journey. Like, the style might change. You might see him in the West. You might see him in a town. You might see him at a nightclub. You might see him in all these different settings. So depending on what I'm trying to pay homage to, you're going to see the comic book evolve, which is cool. And also, as a writer, I really enjoy shenanigans and additional content. So this is something that we didn't talk about yet. So part of every single Kickstarter, there's a short film for people to watch and participate in. And every single issue will have a riddle to solve, which will send you to some place in the real world that you can interact with Path of the Pale Rider.
Very interesting. Very interesting. I love when my comics get meta and yes, that's really good. I'm so happy that this is coming out fairly soon, and everybody will just be able to get to enjoy this and get to enjoy your story. So thank you so much. Also, one interesting question I want to ask you. How does it feel being a woman in the comic field? I know you're doing this more of an indie route, but historically in the comic field, it's a guy thing. It's really heavy with guys as far as with artists and writers and things like that. What is it that you feel like you bring to the table in your diversity?
That's a good question. Well, you get to see sci-fi, horror, and all of that from a woman's mind, you know what I mean? But it's like having done martial arts for 25 years, and that is so much still a male-dominated world, right? You know what I mean? So I'm kind of used to that, being like the token female in the room. This is how it goes sometimes, and I'm comfortable with that because I know what I have to offer is legitimate and that people will enjoy it, and once you're in the story, you're gonna come with me. So I'm going the indie route. When the Kickstarter campaign is actually finished, I have my pitch ready. I'm going to go to some independent publishers out there, more so those that still do creator-owned content. Right. So they can help with the publish, they can help with the reader base, but I'm still going to be paying like my artist his page rate because none of them will pay a page rate, right? So we'll still have a Kickstarter. We're still going to have that fun experience together. But being a woman, it just gives me a little bit of a unique perspective of, I don't know, I can't really put it into words. It's like, because I'm not a fly on the wall on the other side. It's like, I can't tell you what's different because I only see my side of it. Right. But it's different than what you've been getting. You're not going to see the, what do they call that? Something, is it like the Mary Sue effect? I forget. Where like the woman's place is to be the object of trauma. Like she either dies or gets, raped or something like that in order to give the hero purpose. You're not going to see that from me, you know what I mean? Like my female characters are usually strong fighters or important. So you're going to see something different. Everything about this is different than everything I've read. So be prepared to have your mind blown, to have, it's like there's twists and turns and things that you think are happening are it's something different. Right. So it's going to be a nice roller coaster ride. So some of the ones I'm really looking forward to, like episode 8 is so crazy. I can't wait to see people pick that up. The end of episode 1 is nuts. Like when you are done reading, I want to get reactions from people just to hear what they think. Some of you might be mad at me, but that's okay.
Well, I think if you get a lot of people mad at you, you've done something right. You've triggered the audience, left them with an impression that gave an emotional response. And as a writer, you can be more happier to get any type of emotional response out of your audience, right? Right. So I will look forward to it. If your audience is mad at you at the end of issue 1, that means you did something 100% right.
I'm I'm just gonna drink my tea and chuckle. What's that? Like, wait till next issue. I'll just keep drinking.
So let me ask you this. This is a personal question because you bring it up a lot. What is your favorite form of martial arts to practice and display?
Right now, I'm practicing Kali's Illustrissimo. It's a Filipino weapons-based martial art. Most everything that I have practiced is either Indonesian or Filipino martial arts.
Okay.
The reason why is because they're very much weapon-centric. So it makes someone like myself who might be shorter, not as strong, maybe not as fast as my opponent, it equals the playing field as soon as I have a weapon, right?
True.
So it's not something that there's not a lot of tournaments. There's not a lot of. It's realistic. Like it's savage. I'm looking to end the fight in 3 moves. You know what I mean? But it's such a challenge to me. It's like it's a physical and emotional and intellectual challenge. It's like playing chess, where it's like I want to think 3 moves ahead. If I do this, they're going to respond with this, and then I'm going to do this because they're open here. But what I really want is the stab low. You know what I mean? Right. So it's like I'm setting things up to happen. But all being able to like control your emotion, having that dedication where you can get up again and again and again, understanding that you're going to fail again and again and again until you get it right. And that's part of the process. Martial arts, any martial art is great, but this one really suits me. Illustrissimo is a fairly new art. It's based obviously out of Manila. The founder didn't actually start teaching until he was in his 60s because it was his way of life. He protected himself with his art, and if he taught someone else his tricks, he was worried that someone else was going to use them against him. Right. So it wasn't systemized. He had 3 gentlemen that convinced him to teach them. And one would spar the teacher and the other 2 would take notes. And that's how the 3 of them together came up with the system. And it's like, depending on your lineage, like mine is the Christopher Ricketts lineage. So he was one of the 3. Mm-hmm. And then my teacher was actually one of his students. So then that's how you can see like it's fairly new because it's like Tatang Illustrissimo, Master Ricketts, and then my teacher, Guru Perrine, and then myself. So I'm only like 3 people removed from the founder of the art. Right. That's unheard of these days.
Right. It is.
Like most of it, it's like, oh, this started back in China in the 1300s and and then it was brought to here and then here and then here. And this is a very pure form of this art. So that's what caught me. The fact that they don't mess around. The fact that like the founder was practicing well into his 80s and no one could touch him. So if he's 80 and he has limited mobility and he's still an effective fighter, I want to learn that. Right. You know? Right. Something that I can practice until I'm 89 years old and still be able to protect myself. And it's all like geometry and spacing and learning how to see the distance. So playing with that space between you and myself, like if I move my feet here, I can reach you, but you can't reach me, even though you have longer arms. So it's just an interesting, it's so interesting to me. Like if anybody's interested, look it up. It's Illustrissimo, Ilustrismo, something like that. Kali's Illustrissimo.
I'll try to find some illustrations or videos of it and put it in the links of the video. Especially if you have like any footage of you practicing this martial art, I would love to just have that of you kicking ass in this video. I think that would be perfect.
I got a couple I can send you because I post stuff on my Instagram and my Facebook every now and again. A friend of mine who's a weapons maker, he does these really cool like hairpins for women, and it has like a hole in the top. I put it away. But you can wear it in your hair and it's like real easy to deploy and like use it for martial arts, and then you could put it back. So I took it with me to a class one day, and I was just, I showed it to my instructor and I was like, let's play around with it. So we did like a cool 30-second video of me just like reacting to him attacking with a knife, and eventually I disarmed and stabbed him in the face. I don't actually stab him in the face, but you know what I mean? Like,
right. Excuse me. Sorry. So
I can send that to you. That'll be fun.
That would be dope. I think that would be dope. That's really dope. Another personal question: what is your favorite weapon to use in combat?
I like swords. Swords give me, yeah, especially because I'm shorter and I have a shorter reach. I want something that's a bladed weapon and that I can have a longer reach and keep people away from me. I do know open-handed. I do know like some groundwork. I know all that. But
Okay.
if you're bigger and stronger than me, that's your advantage. So my advantage is keeping the space and keeping a bladed weapon between us. So if I have one, that's great. If I have two, even better. If I have a sword and dagger, I'm happy with that. But again, that dagger is only good for when things are close. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because this one has to move forward. But a lot of times, like that sword is blocking the incoming weapon,
Right.
and the knife is what's attacking back.
Right.
So, stuff like that. But yeah, I definitely like bladed weapons. I have a karambit, which is great, but that would be real sneaky. It's really small, which is what karambits are supposed to be.
Right.
You see these giant karambits, and I'm like, it's an assassin's weapon. They usually poison them. They take them out, they cut you, and they leave.
Right.
Like, they're not dueling with karambits like you see in the raid. Like, that was a kick-ass fight scene in the kitchen, but that's not what a karambit really is.
Right.
Yeah, so I got a bunch of, but yeah, I got about 3 long swords. Like, one's a medium sword and 2 are long, but not so long like Hema, where it's like a 2-handed broadsword. Like, that would almost be silly for me because of my arm strength. It's not there. Gotcha. So I want something that's light and that I can maneuver and stab, and with footwork, I can succeed.
Gotcha. And one last personal side question, because you're giving me huge Red Ranger vibes right now.
Yeah.
If you were a Power Ranger, what weapon would you want? Obviously, it would be your swords, but what Ranger color would you be?
I don't. Not pink. Probably, I don't know. I love the Green Ranger. Like, even though he's like, I gravitate to those more complicated characters. Like, my favorite Marvel character is the Winter Soldier.
Right.
So it'd be like same thing, like the Green Ranger, where it's like you're a good guy, but you have potential to be a bad guy, but you could be a good guy again. That's where like I would love to be, because I have that potential, like knowing how to really hurt somebody. It's like you want to stay on the good side, but you have that potential.
Right.
So that's kind of where I would gravitate to, is like the Green Ranger. He's great when he becomes the White Ranger, but Green Ranger's sexy.
You are definitely giving me epic 6 Ranger vibes. If you were a Ranger, I can imagine you coming in being the extra badass that like slightly stronger than the rest of the team, and no one sees you coming. Yeah. And when you go defeat a bunch of enemies, and then everyone's like, oh my god, it's the extra Ranger, and you're Green Ranger, female Green Ranger. I love it. You give me those type of vibes. So let's jump back into the comics for a second. Once your Kickstarter is done, have you put any other thoughts into promotion? Are you going to hit the con scene and go around and promote the comic that way?
Yeah. So what the plan is? Obviously, we want to finish the comic, get it to the printer, and get our copies. And then we want to go to cons. We want to introduce ourselves. Like, Marco and I live close to each other, not too far apart, so we could go to the same cons. I think it's more important for him to go to cons. Like, it'll be fun for me, but again, as a writer, people are like, what do you do? I'm like, I'm a writer, and they're like, peace, on to the next table.
No, I wouldn't say that. I maybe
really?
Because I'm a comic book nerd and I understand what it takes to produce these things, so I like talking to the artists, obviously, but like, the artist is only one side of the story, the writer is the other side of the story. I think I have a few vlogs up where I met some indie comic writers, and I met the writer and the artist who both created the story. Matter of fact, in Atlanta, there's a local artist and writer duo, Marcus Williams, and his teammate, I can't remember his name, Greg Burnham, there it is. They created Tisky Airs, and like the art is really good, but the story is like even more amazing, and just like I said, kind of combination of both writing and storytelling working together to tell a good story. So I think like you will get a lot of fun out of going to the cons and meeting people who like the writing part of comics. Not everybody is an artist. Like, some people like to tell stories, and that's where you come in. Especially like with you being a woman, and comics traditionally being made for men. I think you would be a great presence great welcoming presence to the con scene.
Thank you. And I can cosplay as my own characters. I'm so excited for that.
That's a good point I was going to bring up. I was going to ask and suggest that you please cosplay as your own character.
I built a disc. I have a cowboy hat. If you've watched some of my other interviews, I've had it on. But yeah, I have like a whole outfit, like corset and my jeans and like the freaking belt made out of bullets and fake bullets, right? I can't bring those to a con. But right. It's like, yeah, I have the outfit ready and the shit kicker boots, like I'm there. So I think that would be a lot of fun to actually cosplay as my own character. I want to make some more discs. This one I did is kind of big, but it's functional. And what's cool about it, Mark, is like I can slip my phone behind it, and I have this video that I made that I put on YouTube, and you can like play the video behind the disc and it'll beat with the heartbeat and make the sound.
Oh wow, that's cool. That's really cool.
It's like a functioning disc. Obviously it's not emulating my heartbeat, but it has a heartbeat and the sound to it like it was working.
Right.
And since it's on a YouTube video, we could like, if I make more discs and because I might do that and open that up as a reward level, a future Kickstarter, where you could get a disc. You could go to the YouTube, slip your phone into the pouch behind it, and now you have a working disc too.
I think that would be a good idea. You should definitely do that. No, seriously, that would be a good idea. That would be a really good idea. Wow. So let me ask you this, because you mentioning cosplaying as your character. Yeah. Do you cosplay as other characters?
Yeah, well, I do Winter Soldier.
Really? Okay.
I do Winter Soldier. I have like the mask and I have the shirt with the arm on it, and yeah, of course, all the like 50 million weapons and the boots. Yeah. I think he has knee pads. That's about it. So, but yeah, I've done that one. That's the only one. Oh, this Halloween I went all out and I did like a Loki, and I made like yeah, for my whole family. We were a family of variant Lokis.
Okay.
It was awesome. So I could definitely do that one again. Yeah, that one was fun. So I kept my horns for that one.
Okay, cool. So so it seems like you're fairly new into the cosplay scene. Are you enjoying it?
Yeah, I'm new. Yeah. I mean, I haven't really been to a con with everything. I just kind of put this stuff together. There was one con I was supposed to do what happened? Something happened. I was doing catfishing. That's what happened. We were filming on the day that we had scheduled the con to go. So like my daughter dressed up as Elsa and they all went without me, and I just had to go film, badass martial arts and get hit by a car or something. I don't know. So it was still a good time. It just wasn't the same good time. But yeah, I'm still waiting to do a con where I get to dress up. But I think it'll be fun. People, even if they're like, who are you or what are you dressed up as? And I could be like, go to this table and check out this comic book. I'm from this new comic book called Paths of Pale. You know what I mean? So it could be like advertising for us too.
Yeah, I go to a lot of different cons, and people do constantly all the time cosplay their own original characters, whether they have something to promote or not. Matter of fact, I just did a birthday shoot on Monday where my cosplaying client, he created his own unique character. He drew it out and has a story for it, and he wants to do the photo shoot to kind of help bring that character to life. So that's something very common that people do in the cosplay world, and I definitely recommend you do that. Even if you're not promoting your comic, if you're going like to any type of con or any geek festival or event, just cosplay as your character, and trust me, people will be interested and want to know who this character is, especially if your cosplay is on point. And it sounds like you have her cosplay down to a T.
Yeah, I do. Being a writer and it's like my attention to detail is real good. So it's like I have those things kind of nailed down, or what the character. I was just cosplaying as Jude or like any cowboy in the Apocalypse. Right. So, but it's like I have other characters that I want to cosplay up, but I can't yet because it'll spoil this story.
well,
so they'll be like, "Who are you?" And I'd be like, "I can't tell you because it's a future character." So it's like I have to wait for the story to come out, and then I can start cosplaying as some of these other characters. So I can't wait.
Okay, cool. Speaking of your next story, I know it's probably too early to ask this question,
No,
but
ask
I'm
it.
assuming you got some ideas in there. Have you started planning your next project, your next comic book?
Well, this one is still being written. So I've written the whole first arc. There's 13 issues in the first arc. So that's what we're working on right now. I'm actually writing the second arc. I know how that one ends. And then I have an ending for the entire story, but we're not there yet. So there'll be first arc I have written, second arc I'm in process. I'm about 7 episodes in, probably 13 or 14 in that
Excuse me.
And then there will be a third arc at least. No, you're fine. There's going to be at least a third arc of the story, just depending on if I can get us to that ending or not. I also want to take The Agency, which is already written, and there's 12 episodes of that, and turn that into a comic book. And then I have another superhero series that it's in the back of my head. I haven't put it down on the page yet. I think I maybe wrote the intro to it, and that's it. But so I have other stories that are in there. I just haven't put them down
yet. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Very understandable. Trust me.
Yeah, but
go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, but like I'm really enjoying the second arc of Path of the Pale Rider, because once the cat's out of the bag of what happened with the death process, and I can start like telling people more about that, it just really gets off the rails. Like, for as crazy as the first arc is, the second arc is like 3 times as crazy.
Gotcha. Okay. Okay, cool. Do you know, are you going to do Kickstarters for the other 2 arcs once they're ready to be put out there?
No, I don't know. I'm sorry, you broke up. Go ahead.
No, well, that was it. Are you going to do other Kickstarters for those, or do you think the first Kickstarter could be successful enough to carry the other 2 arcs along?
The other arcs? No, that's going to be a lot of episodes. So, gotcha. I mean, like 13 and, so like 24, 28 pages an issue. So it's like, even if we pick up a publisher, again, I want to stick with the ones that are creator owned. So they're not going to be paying page rates. So someone's got to pay my artist his page rate, which is going to be me. So we'll always have some kind of crowdfunding. If we blow away a Kickstarter and like we double our whatever, and then maybe we can do 2 episodes at once, because if we have the funds, I'm just going to have Marco keep working. Right. But if we get to the point where we got to run another Kickstarters just to pay his page rate, that's what I'm hoping for. So, but I love the Kickstarter because it brings in new readers. My goal is that our Kickstarter dollar amount, our goal, keeps going down, so it'll be easier to hit that number. And then it's just about bringing new readers to the story. So it's like, if I can have a Kickstarter for $500 and hit it in an hour, let's do it. Right. This one was probably the biggest one that we'll have, just because we need that initial capital to start everything rolling. And then after that, it should be, keep going.
Gotcha. Okay. So what has been, I don't want to say your favorite part, but your most interesting part of doing the whole Kickstarter thing? Because I'm assuming this would be your first one that you probably had to do and had such a big campaign for, and it took a lot of people coming together to make it work. And again, congratulations on hitting your goal. I know a lot of people don't usually get to hit their goal, but you did, and you hit it before it ended. So now you're into getting even more, so you can provide even more for the readers who are backing you. But what is your favorite part of this Kickstarter process has been so far?
My favorite part, it's all been a process, man. It's like learning how to set up a Kickstarter campaign, because it's like my husband and I have been Kickstarter backers for a long time. Right. But to flip the script and to actually have to put one together, it was a lot of learning had to happen. And my favorite part, I think, was putting together the video, just because the reaction that I was getting from the video is the excitement and the people that really want to do all the things that, not just the comic book, but all the shenanigans that come with it. I've had great response. So having that feedback from everybody of how excited they are when they go to the page and they take a look at everything, that's been the most rewarding. Because when you put yourself out there, here's something that I did, it's in my head, hopefully people like it. It's like you're really opening yourself up and putting yourself out there, and it can be quite daunting. Especially when They're like, well, I recommend that you get a publicist. I recommend that you do a press tour. You want people to find your project in your audience. And I'm like, you're absolutely right.
Right.
But then there's that too. It's like, you have to put yourself out there for, people to see who you are and
Right.
to really judge you if they want to. And, hopefully they like who I am, just, so that it brings people to the project. But if you don't like me, it's okay. You can still like Path of the Pale Rider if like you don't like my glasses or whatever. I don't know. It's not about that.
Well, I have learned that people can be intentionally and unintentionally cruel when they look at someone else's work. And as an artist, and something a lot of artists these days don't understand, as an artist, you gotta be able to take criticism, both good and bad, and just be able to just grow from either side of that. And I feel like a lot of artists and a lot of people, especially in the younger generation, just don't kind of understand that, and they just think whatever they do, it's supposed to be immaculate and everyone's supposed to love it. But no, that's not the case. So
but then how do you grow?
Right, exactly. How do you grow as an artist if you don't come across some type of obstacle or criticism? If you just told all your life you're great, you're just gonna believe everything you do is great, and this one's probably not, right?
Right. Well, to give an example of that, this being my first Kickstarter, one of the things that Kickstarter will let you do is actually send a preview of the page, what it's going to look like when it goes live. So I had people sign up for a beta group, and I sent the link to like 10 people, and I was like, give me your honest opinion.
Right.
Like, do you understand what I'm trying to convey? Because that's number one. Number two, do all the moving parts make sense? Because we're not just a comic book. We have short films, we have interaction, we have riddles. Does that all make sense? What's missing? What can I add to the reward levels? What are you looking for? And honestly, I got the best feedback from those 10 people about how I should change, bits and pieces and fine tune it before it went live to really capture my audience. And like I had you're supposed to put like a description of like the project, why it's exciting. And like, from the 8 pages, I really don't give you a lot of zombies. I kind of leave you hanging. And like a lot of people were like, oh, it's another zombie, comic book. It's another Walking Dead. Even worse, right? Because it's like you have a guy on a horse and a cowboy hat and there's zombies. It's Walking Dead. Yeah. And I was like, but it's not, you know what I mean? So I had to go back and rewrite, my little intro about what Path of the Pale Rider was. So people understood like, no, you're stuck in your body. You don't leave. And because that is the most interesting part of my comic. Right. Is that we take a zombie trope and we flip it upside down.
I agree.
You can't leave.
Agree.
So if it wasn't for that though, people would have totally missed the point.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, that was it. That brings up a good point. I'm glad you kind of already answered it, but like, how do you deal with being compared to The Walking Dead, or you're just another zombie apocalypse story? And you just answered it. You're not. You're really not, because like you're dealing with death in such a unique way that I haven't actually seen in any other medium now that I think about it. Like, yeah, I've seen some aspects where the dead don't necessarily die and they just keep living, but like you're telling it in such an interesting, unique way, and you're bringing other real life problems that come from it. This is more than just a zombie story, I feel like, just with what you told me and what I've read on the Kickstarter. But I'm glad you brought that up, because I was definitely going to ask that, like, how do you deal with people comparing you to The Walking Dead? You've answered it. It's not The Walking Dead, and you have to go back and convey that within the intro of your Kickstarter and things like that. So that's really that's fascinating. I believe this is going to be a new take on what we think of when we think of apocalyptic type storytelling, and things like that, because usually, you're dealing with the end of the world in this sense because something happened and the world has changed, and now we have to deal with this new threat. But I believe it's interesting because like the dead can continue on just living. That's such an interesting concept to me. Like you even said, like some recently deceased people try to pass off as human. Like, how long are you going to keep that up? Like, the human body decays very rapidly. You got weeks at the most. Right. In that. So I'm really fascinated just to see how that goes.
But then are we hiding people so we don't You know what I mean? Because eventually what happens is like rights are taken away, right? We have riots, we have people in the street that are upset because now they're being told they can't own property. Where do I go?
Right.
And it's like the government starts making decisions for this large group of people, and it makes everybody upset. And at one point it's like, okay, once you're dead, you go away. You go to the undead retirement community, you live separate from the living. And it doesn't matter if you're dead for 5 minutes or you've been dead for 2 days, we want you out of here, right? So now are we hiding people? Right? So that they don't get collected?
Right, because
what if that undead is a child?
Right.
Or what if the undead is a parent and your child is alive?
Right.
So now we have all sorts of like ethical questions to answer.
There's so much more you can do with that, with the current political climate and how the Supreme Court has done certain things. Like, you can play off that in a future arc or something. That would be interesting.
You know what's weird? I have tackled all of these issues, and I wrote this sucker in 2018. Okay, so prior to the pandemic, prior to George Floyd, prior to Supreme Court justices and January 6th, and all of that happened after I wrote this script. And it boggles my mind how many times like my subconscious was clued into, art imitating life. It's like all of these things, these crazy things. Well, and they've all happened before. That's the thing. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't invent riots. I didn't invent, people hiding people in the attic or in the basement to avoid being collected by a regime. You know what I mean? That's all stuff that humans have
done
to each other in the past. We have anonymous phone numbers now that you can call and turn your neighbor in for any number of crimes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like, it's not out of some, you know what I mean? Like it could exist. It could exist for undead people as well. So I just I point a spotlight at the human race and I say, look how ugly we can be. But I never really give any answers about what's right and what's wrong. I just kind of show how it unfolds, and you see both sides, and it's just, I'm like, who am I to say, what I would do? It's a fictional world, for Pete's sakes. Like, people don't come at me and point fingers. Like, it doesn't exist. It's fake. But you can pick whatever side you want, and nobody will think less of you. Do whatever. It's the apocalypse.
That's true. And I love how you painted that. You just put a spotlight on who we are as humans, and you just let the light shine, and whatever happens. I love that put that way so eloquently, because like, you're right, you wrote all this before 2 years ago, before any of this happened, and like, your story automatically fits in the time and day that we are in. And all you did was just pick on some of the things that we as humans have already done, and the cycle continues, and it's just like nothing ever happened. That's
crazy.
Yeah. Or is it sad? However you want to look at it. But no, it's crazy. It's really crazy.
And it's just like, here we are. This is how we would react to this if this was really happening.
Right.
So whether it's ugly or whether it's not, it is what it is. But you'll get to see it all unfold. I promise you. We have an extended flashback starting, I think, episode 3. We start the flashback, so 3, 4, and then maybe some of 5 is flashback. So you get to see like the start of the death process being broken, how people react to it, the chaos, the uncertainty, the fall, the riots, the government, the collectors. Like, I'll take you through it all, and then I'll drop us right back into the apocalypse with Jude, and off he goes trying to solve the case again. So it's like, you get to see it all, tackle it all in the story.
Right.
So, you want to be there for it.
I'm definitely going to be there for it. Let me ask you this. So we're getting close to the end of the podcast. So let me just ask you this. There's only, like you said, 3-4 days left into your Kickstarter as of this recording now, right? Once the Kickstarter ends, because this video is going to come out between it ending. So how would listeners be able to support you after your Kickstarter ends?
You want to join the social media. I'm going to do an overprint, of course. I'm going to have extra copies. I might run an Indiegogo just for like selling the book.
Okay.
I haven't decided, but if you're on my social media and you'd like a copy, you can contact me directly and I'll ship you one, no problem. So there'll be ways to get your hands on this. And then of course, when we do the next Kickstarter, the number 2, we'll always, have like the previous episodes. So you'll be able to catch up essentially. But like, as we're in process of turning out the comic book, like Marco's going to be real busy, but I have free time. So I'm going to be turning out more content. So I have a TikTok, I have a YouTube. And the cool thing is when you start solving the riddles, that's where the fun is. Like we're going to be, the riddle on the back cover, it sends you to a place, right? And then it could send you to a podcast. It could send you to a phone number to call. It could send you to a YouTube video, you know what I mean?
Right.
Where it's all stuff that's basically inside the world of Path of the Pale Rider. So all that stuff's going to continually be happening no matter where we are in the comic, Right. So, and I'll put like spoilers, like I'll put like a little piece of art that from the page that Marco finished because I'm excited about it. So you get to come along for the whole journey, which is cool. Hopefully we can keep that up for as long as possible. Once we start getting really big, I don't know, you know what I mean? Like I might have to hire someone to do some of the things that I do if I'm going to be doing something else. So now's a good time to join in so you can participate in the shenanigans.
I like participating in shenanigans, so I'm definitely going to put my foot in the race when I can. What advice could you give to other future comic book writers or artists out there who are looking to getting into the field of sequential arts and storytelling?
Just do it. Don't second guess yourself. Start making a plan. For me, it was essential to kind of think through the whole process. As a writer, I wanted my first arc done before I wanted my illustrator to start drawing things in case I needed to go change stuff. But I mean, once you feel like you're ready to like pull the trigger and go find an artist, make sure they work with your story, kind of like what Mark was talking about. There needs to be a healthy marriage between the art and the story so they work well together for whatever you're trying to convey. And do it. Like, put yourself out there. Life is too short. And if you don't start moving forward with this stuff, it may never happen. And
Right.
That would be so sad that someone like myself can't enjoy the story that's in your head, because there's people out there that want to know your story. Your story could be their new favorite story.
Right.
Your story could be their whole world. You know what I mean? It's like they have fandoms out there for Harry Potter and Star Wars and Star Trek. And it's like, you could be that next thing, but we won't know it until you put it out into the world. So I love you, whoever you are, future comic book artist, because I'm a big nerd and I want to read your comic. Go put it on paper.
I like that. I like that. I would end the podcast there, but you gave me one other kind of question I want to ask you.
Do it.
Are you ready to be the next big thing? Because it sounds like this is going to take off and you're going to be so successful. With this, you're not going to have time to do these little smaller podcast interviews anymore. But are you ready for that success?
Yes, I think I am. We've put a lot of thought. We've been working on this for a couple of years. I'm ready for people to start finding the story and becoming fans and seeing all the cool stuff that we've been planning. And I just have to be patient and roll it out at that time. There's
Right.
so many times I just want to spoil the story and like tell people what happens, but it's like I have to sign my own NDA and not talk about it. So, but once it's out there and we start rolling, I want to make sure that I always have time for the indie podcasters like yourself. Like, I want to make sure that we will always have time to talk about it. And, and it's like, if you get my comic and you want to do a reaction video, I want to be there because I want to see how you're reacting to the story. So
Really?
let's always stay in contact. Yeah. Oh, if you want to do a review, obviously I have episodes that have like real crazy stuff that happens, and some of them that it's like stuff happens, but it's not as crazy.
Right.
I want to see the reactions. Like, episode 1, episode 4, episode 8. I know they're huge ones. I kill people in all sorts of gnarly ways that, you might have a great reaction to how we kill off character X, Y, and Z. Oh, and if you want to be killed off, we can kill you off in the story too.
Oh, could you please? I would love to be in your story.
We have a backer level called Immortality, where Marco will draw your likeness into the comic. We got about 10 backers at that level right now, so Marco has his work cut out for him. But we will draw you into the story, and pretty rest assured that we will kill you almost immediately.
Okay, can you make it as horrible and gruesome as possible? I would love to be immortalized in a comic that way. I think that would be awesome.
Yes, that's the plan, at least. I mean, like, we don't kill anybody in any normal ways, pretty much. I mean, it is the apocalypse. So, but what's so cool about the story is even though you're undead, we could still see you in a later issue.
Oh. Yeah, I forgot about that.
Because you're still around. Aha. In fact, I'm writing something right now where we could throw a bunch of you in that we've killed off, and that would be fun. I don't know if Marco will kill me though. I'm like, you see these 12 people that we've killed off? Can we put them in this scene? He'll be like, Laurie, you're killing me.
Oh, that is awesome.
But like, what would the payoff feeling be for that? Where it's like, I was in issue 2, I'm not going to see me ever again. And then you're like in issue like 25, and you're like, wait a minute, that's me. Like,
yeah, that's gonna be
there.
Good.
I am.
That's gonna be really good. I think I'm gonna do that. So you're gonna get some more backers soon.
Come on along for the ride. You're guaranteed to have all your stuff at this point. You know what I mean? It's like there's no risk. It's all fun at this point. So everybody that's watching, come along for the ride. We're gonna have a good time.
I'm gonna come along for the ride. This is gonna be a fun ride. So tell my audience and the rest of the internet where they can find you on social media and YouTube and everything. Tell everybody where you can be found.
Got it. Well, on Facebook, the main group that I communicate with is the Facebook group. So it's just called Path of the Pale Rider. That's the one where we have like the spoilers, the contests, the behind the scenes, the most updates. That's where I'm going to drop the ideas for the short films for you guys to participate in as well. The next one is the Instagram. It's at Path of the Pale Rider. There's an underscore between all the words. So at Path and then underscore the blah, blah, blah. Right. That one gets a lot of updates as well. Not as detailed as the Facebook because they limit how many characters you can use, right? So that same handle at Path of the Pale Rider with the underscores is our TikTok. I will put pages on there from Marco's work where we can animate stuff. I'll do little skits and stuff. So you'll see all of that on the TikTok. There'll be more content coming out there starting in the fall, just because I'll have more time at that point. And then let's see, Twitter. I love Twitter. I've got such a great response from the Twitterverse from this project. I feel loved from the Twitterverse, which is great. Right. So Twitter, we're at Path Pale Rider. No spaces, no underscores, no nothing. At Path Pale Rider. And it's like we talk about all sorts of comic shenanigans, and not just mine, but like everybody's indie comics, and that's fun because you could see like other stuff that's going on that even like I had no idea. Talked with some creator, he's doing a kids book that's called Punk Taco. So cool. Right. I want one. And so that's Twitter, and then we have a webpage. It's www.afterthepalerider.com. I kind of have everything listed there, but that one probably receives the less amount of attention because I suck at web pages. It's not my forte. I'm a writer. Yeah. But it's there. So like if you can't find the social media that you're looking for, it's on the web page. So at least I have that going, and I'll put art, and I have a blog that like nobody reads and I touch maybe once every 3 months. So not super exciting for the web page, but it's there. Okay. Let's see, is that it? Yeah, I have a YouTube page. It's just Laurie Calcaterra. It has some of my other martial arts videos on there, and then I will be dumping like when we do more content onto there as well. Okay, cool. So at some point I'm doing a podcast, but I haven't gotten that far yet. Gotta get the comic book first.
You should do those. Those are fun to do too. Trust me.
Well, here's my idea for the podcast. I want it to be in the world. So I don't want to be in it. I want to pay some voice actors to act out things, almost like a buddy cop situation where they're talking to each other and they're reacting to things in the Path of the Pale Rider world. So it'll be fictional, but every episode something different will be happening, and these guys will be voice acting it out. So it'll be cool, where it's like again, it's that meta that suck you into the rabbit hole kind of moment. But I always have to make sure people know that it's fictional because trigger warning, there's going to be some distressing things happening. So I want people to know fictional. None of this is real.
Right. You don't want another instance of War of the Worlds back on the radio publication of it back in the 1930s and causing a public panic.
Cause a panic, right? Ah! Or I get like phone calls from the police or the FBI, like, what is going on? Like, it's fictional.
Yeah. Oh,
Warning.
wow.
So there's a lot of ideas in the works.
That's good. I can't wait to
but it's baby steps. It's like, right?
Right.
Yeah, it'll get there. We'll have
like
fun.
I said, I can't wait to see it. You have taken me on a journey in just this short podcast alone, so I can't wait to go on the journey with you of you finishing up the first arc and just having the fun releasing it and doing all the things that we talk about in this podcast. I thank you so much for coming on. I know we've had some issues scheduling this podcast, but we finally did it. We just stuck to it and we did it, and it was great. It was a great interview. Also, just for those of you who don't know, me and Laurie were both on Blame the Popcorn podcast this past Saturday, a big mega Geeks of the Round Table event. I'll put a link to that in the description of this video also if you want to check that out. But we were guests on Jason's podcast, and he was a guest on my podcast last night. So if you'd like to see that video of me and Jason and two other podcasters reviewing Moon Knight and Doctor Strange, I'll put that link in the description below. And this has been Blerdkast. Thank you for coming on. Thank you. This was such a great interview. You can find Blerdkast on Anchor, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Audible, and everywhere else where other podcasts can be found. And you can find Blerdography on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. Thank you for coming on. Thank you.
Thank you for having me, Mark. I'm so glad we finally connected because this was a great interview. I like where I finally find my people that are excited about my stuff, and I'm always like, let's talk about it. Let's do it. So thank you.
Definitely. I would love to have you on once you start sending out some of the books and you get some feedback from some of the people who backed you. I would love to have you on then and just pick your brain about, now you're a legit comic book artist. How do you feel? You comic book writer. How do you feel at that moment? So I would love to have you back on in the future.
Cool. Absolutely. I'll be there for sure.
Cool. Any lasting words you want to tell the audience or let anyone know before we go?
Remember, in the apocalypse, swords don't run out of bullets.
Very good point. Very good point. Swords, actually, in the zombie apocalypse, sword is my weapon of choice. Michonne from The Walking Dead made it very clear that's what you need to have during that time. Or a bat with a bunch of nails in it. But, that's for a different type of enemy.
That'll get stuck.
Like I said, it's for a very different type of enemy. You don't use that one on the dead. Walking Dead reference. But anyway, this has been Blerdkast. This has been Blerdkast. I hope everybody enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.